Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Wednesday, the 1st of July. I'm your host, Daniel, and today we're going to talk about the UK Defence has planned to allocate £5 billion towards drones. Qatar diplomacy is uncertain as it clouds the US-Iranian deal prospects. And a US general has said that they would stand by their Baltic allies on defence. So firstly, the UK has released its long-awaited Strategic Defence Review implementation plan committing £5 billion to drone procurement over the coming years. The investment targeted surveillance and strike capabilities of uncrewed systems across all military branches. It signals a formal shift in British defence posture towards autonomous and uncrewed warfare. So what? I think this is a really good move by the UK. Drones have undoubtedly changed warfare forever, and it's something that I think all militaries should be investing in heavily. I'm looking at you, NZDF. The big question I have is where they're going to spend their money. This is a big thing, defense procurement, where you buy stuff from, and the US is traditionally where the UK would go to for their defense procurement, UK companies sometimes. It'll be interesting if they shift their sights towards European manufacturers, particularly Ukrainian drone manufacturers, as they are pretty up there when it comes to this type of tech, or whether they stay with American companies and try and continue to build that relationship. But I think hopefully they got some advice, at least from Ukraine, on what type of drones they want to buy and how they're going to utilize them. Ukraine is at the forefront of drone technology and drone TTPs, so I really hope that they've leveraged that relationship there to inform this decision making. And next, there's some uncertainty surrounding Qatar's diplomatic role in complicating prospects for the US-Iranian nuclear deal. Qatar has served as a key back-channel intermediary in direct negotiations between Washington and Tehran, but doubts about Doha's continued willingness to mediate are casting a shadow over the timeline of any agreement. So what? I don't think it's any secret that Qatar has historically been an, let's say, interesting middleman between the West and Iran. They have played host to the leaders of Hamas for a long time, while also housing US military presence. So it's a very strange relationship to be in. But on the negotiating front, I think this all appears to being stalled out. I don't know if we can blame Qatar for that. I think Iran likely wants to kind of cause friction here and delay any kind of decision making because it benefits them. They're making money off the Strait of Hormuz, and the longer they wait, the more pressure is going to be put on Donald Trump, especially as we head towards November. We're in a new month now that's in people's minds. We're edging closer to the midterms, so it's going to be pretty tough. And yeah, I think Trump is in a very tough position here. He's caught between making what is a pretty shitty deal at the end of the day and going back to a war that maybe his own Senate won't even approve. So he might not even have the leverage of being able to threaten Iran with a continued conflict if they publicly say he can't. That kind of fucks any negotiation he's going for. And lastly, a senior US general has reaffirmed Washington's commitment to defending Baltic NATO allies against Russian aggression. This statement came amid persistent questions in Eastern Europe about the durability of US security guarantees under the current administration. The general said that US forces would stand shoulder to shoulder with European partners in the region. So what? This is what I want to see. This is good, positive messaging around NATO, and it's likely good for international security. Russia is going to try and divide and conquer when it comes to NATO. It wants to try and fracture the relationship, fracture the agreement, and try and essentially isolate countries so that they can both have overt and covert pressure put upon them to try and, flip them towards more of a Russian-leaning geopolitical sphere. And the Baltic allies are particularly susceptible to this due to their history. Due to this, they're pretty nervous about Russian aggression and Russian invasion. When the Ukrainian war kicked off, they were some of the biggest supporters of Ukraine purely because of this. They see them as the next likely target of any kind of Russian aggression if Russia was to steamroll through Ukraine. though that hasn't come to fruition now, and I don't think it's going to. However, Russia's not going to like this. They're not going to like this statement, and it's likely they're going to run some type of grey zone operations to try and stir up trouble, and show if you make public statements that are counter to their narrative or that don't look good for them, they're going to try and stir a bit of shit up, cause a bit of problems for you, make things hard. But anyway, that's been the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you.